At the beginning of the movie, we are taken to the middle of a city in South Korea, where a man drives a white car while carefully looking around, as if searching for someone. After a while, he spots a black car ahead and quietly begins following it. Moments later, he suddenly speeds up and deliberately crashes into its rear. The driver of the black car assumes it's just an accident and calmly steps out to photograph the damage for insurance. However, while he's distracted, the driver of the white car quietly approaches from behind with a knife and brutally stabs him several times. He drags the victim back into his own car, kills him on the spot, and calmly drives away. The following day, a team of police officers arrives to investigate. Among them is a detective who carefully examines the victim's body before inspecting the damaged car. While checking the rear bumper, he notices a white paint dent left by another vehicle. He immediately realizes the victim had been rear-ended before the murder. Judging by the transferred paint, he concludes the other vehicle was white and photographs the dent as evidence. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Dong-soo, one of South Korea's most powerful mafia bosses. Although he controls several illegal gambling businesses, another crime boss, Rolex, has recently started interfering with his operations. Hoping to settle things peacefully, Dong-soo meets him. During the meeting, Rolex deliberately shows him no respect, casually eating his meal while making Dong-soo wait. Although furious, Dong-soo controls himself and calmly proposes that neither of them interfere in the other's business. Rolex smiles as if ready to refuse. But before he can answer, both sides' bodyguards begin arguing. Losing patience, Dong-soo punches his own bodyguard, then grabs one of Rolex's guards and forcefully pulls out one of his teeth with his bare hands. Rolex instantly loses his confidence after witnessing Dong-soo's terrifying strength. To make his point even clearer, Dong-soo drops the guard's tooth into a glass of liquor and orders Rolex to drink it. Terrified, Rolex obeys and immediately agrees to the deal, promising not to interfere in Dong-soo's business anymore. On the other hand, back at the police station, the detective presents the photographs of the white dent to his superior. He explains that several victims have recently been stabbed to death in almost identical ways, suggesting a serial killer is targeting random people. Unfortunately, his superior dismisses the theory and orders him to stop chasing imaginary connections. Meanwhile, after settling his dispute with Rolex, Dong-soo drives home. On a deserted road late at night, another vehicle suddenly crashes into the back of his car. Unknowingly, Dong-soo has become the next target of the same serial killer. He gets out to inspect the damage and tells the other driver to leave since it's only a minor accident. But as he turns around, the killer suddenly attacks from behind and stabs him. Expecting another easy victim, the killer is shocked when Dong-soo grabs him and slams him to the ground. The killer quickly recovers and launches another series of knife attacks. This time, Dong-soo snatches the knife away and stabs him in the chest. Badly injured, the killer realizes he can't win. He runs back to his car, starts the engine, and before escaping, deliberately drives into Dong-soo, sending him flying across the road before disappearing into the darkness. After the attack, Dong-soo is rushed to the hospital. Seeing their boss badly injured, his men immediately assume Rolex is responsible. Filled with rage, they storm one of Rolex's gambling dens, destroy the place, and brutally beat several of his men. The next morning, Dong-soo regains consciousness. He tells his bodyguard the attacker wasn't one of Rolex's men, but a complete stranger. He also remembers the attacker's face and memorized his license plate before he escaped. He writes down every detail and orders his trusted men to find the man and bring him back alive. A short while later, the detective arrives hoping to question Dong-soo about the serial killer. However, Dong-soo refuses to cooperate because he wants to find the killer himself and take revenge. Since Dong-soo refuses to help, the detective examines his damaged car outside the hospital. The moment he notices the same white dent on the rear bumper, he realizes Dong-soo was attacked by the same serial killer responsible for the previous murders. Meanwhile, Rolex visits Dong-soo in the hospital. Instead of showing sympathy, he complains that Dong-soo's men destroyed his gambling den and demands compensation. Knowing his men acted without permission, Dong-soo agrees to repay every penny. However, before leaving, Rolex mocks him. He sarcastically says that if someone had attacked him, he would have already hunted the killer down. He even says he'd be too ashamed to stay alive if he failed. After insulting Dong-soo, Rolex leaves with a smug smile. Later, the detective again asks his superior for permission to question Dong-soo properly, explaining he's the only survivor who has seen the killer's face. Unfortunately, his superior rejects the request once again. Meanwhile, Dong-soo grows increasingly frustrated. News of the attack spreads through the underworld, damaging his reputation. To speed up the search, he has an artist draw the killer's face and distributes the sketch to all his men. On the other hand, the serial killer has already chosen another target. While driving around, he notices a truck driver talking on the phone beside the road. Just like before, he quietly approaches and repeatedly stabs him to death. He then steals the truck, but soon discovers another man hiding inside and kills him as well. While leaving, the killer accidentally drops his knife. Instead of retrieving it, he simply drives away, unaware that this mistake will later cause him serious trouble. Meanwhile, Dong-soo still can't find the killer, and every passing day weakens his reputation. Investors begin abandoning him, while Rolex expands into his territory. The only way to restore his name is to catch the man who attacked him. Just then, one of his men arrives with important news. Although they still haven't found the killer, they've recovered the knife used in the double murder and also located the abandoned car matching the license plate Dong-soo remembered. The man also reminds Dong-soo that Rolex has broken their agreement by expanding into his territory. Realizing he'll lose everything if he waits any longer, Dong-soo comes up with a plan. The very next day, he invites the detective to his house. Dong-soo tells him they're both hunting the same man, so they should work together. He reveals that his men have already found the killer's abandoned car, but deliberately hides the fact that they also recovered the knife. Eventually, they strike a deal. Whoever finds the serial killer first gets the first claim over him. Dong-soo wants revenge, while the detective wants to arrest the killer, take him to court, and finally earn the promotion he's always wanted. Although the detective believes he'll arrest the killer first, Dong-soo has no interest in justice. The moment he catches the killer, he plans to beat him to death. After making the deal, Dong-soo reveals a hidden tape recorder containing their entire conversation. He warns the detective that if he ever betrays him, he'll release the recording, destroying the detective's career because it proves he cooperated with a notorious mafia boss. After that, Dong-soo gives the detective the killer's sketch, and both begin searching separately. The detective's first step is examining the abandoned car, where he successfully recovers several fingerprints, giving the police their first solid evidence. Meanwhile, Dong-soo decides to use the situation to his advantage. He gives the killer's knife to one of his trusted men and orders him to assassinate Rolex. Since Rolex broke their agreement and exploited his weakened reputation, Dong-soo decides it's time to eliminate him. Following the order, Dong-soo's men quietly sneak into Rolex's house late at night. While he's asleep, they suffocate him with a pillow before stabbing him with the serial killer's knife, making it appear that the killer murdered Rolex. The next morning, the police investigate Rolex's murder. During the forensic examination, fingerprints on the murder weapon perfectly match those recovered from the abandoned car. As a result, everyone believes the serial killer killed Rolex. Soon, news spreads throughout the city that a ruthless serial killer is on the loose, forcing the entire police department to join the manhunt. However, the detective immediately realizes something is wrong. Deep down, he knows the serial killer didn't kill Rolex. Suspecting Dong-soo framed him, the detective secretly turns on a hidden recorder and confronts him. Without realizing he's being recorded, Dong-soo calmly admits he murdered Rolex himself. Meanwhile, television news reports that the notorious serial killer murdered the famous mafia boss Rolex. As fate would have it, the real killer is watching the report inside a hotel restaurant. Furious that someone has blamed him for a murder he never committed, he realizes the police will now hunt him even more aggressively. Unable to tolerate being framed, the serial killer heads straight to Rolex's funeral. Many influential underworld figures have gathered there, including Dong-soo. Of course, none of Rolex's men know Dong-soo actually killed their boss. The killer quietly approaches Rolex's son and hands him a letter. In it, he explains that although Rolex was killed with his knife, he wasn't the murderer. He hints that the real killer is standing among the funeral guests before subtly pointing toward Dong-soo and disappearing. Rolex's son had already suspected Dong-soo, but now all of his doubts disappear. From that moment onward, he burns with nothing but revenge. The very next day, while Dong-soo and the detective are examining the killer's abandoned car for more evidence, Rolex's son suddenly arrives with several armed men to avenge his father's death. A brutal fight immediately breaks out. Despite being surrounded, Dong-soo and the detective fight side by side, and after a fierce battle, they kill every attacker. Later, back at the police station, a female officer hands the detective the fingerprint report. He immediately rushes to the registered address linked to those fingerprints. However, by the time he arrives, the house is empty. While searching it, he finds a family photograph. Looking closely, he is shocked to see the serial killer standing in the picture. Even more surprising, the man's face perfectly matches the sketch Dong-soo had drawn earlier. At last, the detective has a real photograph of the killer and immediately returns to gather every piece of information about him. Meanwhile, Dong-soo attends an important meeting with several influential people. But because his reputation has fallen so much, nobody respects him anymore. One man even starts mocking him in front of everyone. Furious, Dong-soo repeatedly slaps the man until he dies, leaving everyone terrified. At the same time, the detective recovers a recording of the serial killer's voice from previous phone records. He immediately sends it to Dong-soo and asks if he recognizes the voice. The moment Dong-soo hears it, he confirms without hesitation that it belongs to the man who attacked him. That very night, Dong-soo and the detective launch their biggest search operation yet. Dong-soo gathers all his men, hands them the killer's photograph, and orders them to capture him alive at any cost. Everyone spreads across the city. Despite searching every corner, neither Dong-soo's men nor the detective's team find a single clue. The following day, Dong-soo is standing by the roadside during heavy rain when he notices a young college student getting soaked. Although he's one of the city's most feared gangsters, he has a kind heart. Feeling sorry for her, he offers her his umbrella. At first, the student politely refuses, but after Dong-soo insists, she accepts it with a grateful smile. At that moment, the detective also arrives. Seeing the girl accept the umbrella, he jokes that she shouldn't take things from strangers because the man could be a gangster. The girl smiles and replies that, honestly, the detective looks far more like a gangster than the man who gave her the umbrella. Hearing this, Dong-soo smiles as the girl thanks him again before boarding a bus. Both Dong-soo and the detective watch the bus leave. However, neither notices the serial killer sitting silently in one of the back seats. That night, Dong-soo, the detective, and several of their men are eating together while discussing the investigation. Suddenly, breaking news appears on television. The serial killer has claimed another victim, a female college student. Both men are shocked, but then Dong-soo notices the umbrella shown beside the victim's body. It's the exact same umbrella he gave the student earlier that day. The realization hits him instantly. The girl he had tried to help only hours ago has already been murdered. Filled with rage, Dong-soo and the detective realize the murder happened only a short while ago, meaning the killer is probably still nearby. Without wasting another second, everyone splits up and begins another search. This time, they search restaurants, hotels, hospitals, and every possible location. Eventually, they reach a hotel and show the owner the killer's photograph. The owner immediately recognizes him and reveals that he's staying there. The owner gives them the room number, but when they enter, the room is empty. The killer has gone out. Realizing he's still nearby, they hide outside the hotel and wait. Hours pass until midnight, but the killer never returns. They begin suspecting he discovered their trap. Just then, a black car slowly approaches the hotel. Sitting behind the wheel is the serial killer himself. As soon as he nears the hotel, he senses something is wrong, quickly turns his car around and speeds away. The moment Dong-soo and the detective see him escaping, they immediately give chase. After a high-speed pursuit, they finally block his car. But before they can capture him, the killer jumps out and starts running. Neither Dong-soo nor the detective is willing to let him escape again. Both chase after him while Dong-soo's men spread through the surrounding streets to block every escape route. The killer disappears into narrow alleys. Taking advantage of the confusion, he suddenly attacks one of Dong-soo's men. During the fierce struggle, Dong-soo's man manages to stab the killer, seriously injuring him. However, despite his wounds, the killer overpowers him, kills him, and escapes again. A short time later, Dong-soo finds his loyal subordinate barely alive. With his final breaths, the man tells Dong-soo which direction the killer fled before dying. Without wasting time, Dong-soo follows the trail. After running some distance, he notices fresh blood on the ground and follows it until it leads him to a bar. Inside, he sees two frightened women singing through tears. The moment Dong-soo notices their expressions, he realizes the killer is hiding inside one of the rooms. Meanwhile, inside, the serial killer waits behind the door with a knife, planning to ambush him. But Dong-soo doesn't fall for the trap. Instead of opening the door, he smashes it down with brute force, crashing straight into the killer. After months of searching, Dong-soo unleashes all his rage, beating the serial killer mercilessly until he's barely conscious. He then drags the killer across the floor, throws him into his car, and drives toward his hideout. Meanwhile, the detective repeatedly calls Dong-Su's phone, but every call is ignored. He immediately realizes Dong-Su has already captured the killer. As soon as Dong-Su reaches his hideout, he ties the serial killer to a chair and begins beating him without mercy. Even after the brutal beating, the serial killer simply keeps laughing. Enraged, Dong-Su is about to kill him when, out of nowhere, the detective crashes his car into Dong-Su at full speed, knocking him unconscious. Without wasting a second, the detective unties the serial killer, throws him into his car, and drives straight to the police station. Every officer is stunned. The man the entire police force failed to catch for months has finally been arrested. Within hours, the news spreads across the city. Meanwhile, Dong-Su watches the news and realizes the detective has made another move against him. The police raid all of Dong-Su's gambling businesses, arrest many of his men, and issue an arrest warrant against Dong-Su after discovering the gambling machines were rigged. However, despite capturing the serial killer, the detective soon realizes he has a much bigger problem. The police fail to find any evidence directly linking the killer to the murders. Sitting confidently in the interrogation room, the killer calmly denies every accusation. The reason for his confidence is simple. Long before his arrest, he deliberately burned his fingertips with chemicals, making the recovered fingerprints impossible to match. With no solid evidence left, the detective regrets taking the killer away from Dong-Su. Now he has neither enough evidence to convict the killer nor the authority to kill him. Soon, the story moves to the courtroom. Standing before the judge, the serial killer confidently claims he's innocent and insists the police are framing him. Since the prosecution lacks convincing evidence, the judge has no legal grounds to convict him. Sitting inside the courtroom are the victims' families, who break down in tears as they watch him deny everything with a smile. Just when it seems the judge is about to release him, the prosecutor calls one final witness. That witness is none other than Dong-Su. He is the only person who ever survived a direct attack by the serial killer. The moment the killer sees Dong-Su enter the courtroom, the smile instantly disappears from his face. Taking the witness stand, Dong-Su points directly at the killer and tells the judge this is the man who stabbed him multiple times. The killer's lawyer immediately objects, arguing that Dong-Su is a notorious gangster whose testimony can't be trusted. Dong-Su calmly replies that if the victim had been someone from the lawyer's own family, he would never have said that. Even then, the killer keeps smiling because he still believes there's no real evidence against him. Watching him laugh fills Dong-Su with anger. He removes his shirt, revealing the deep scars left by the attack. He also presents the sketch he drew immediately afterward, showing that it perfectly matches the man standing before the court. Unfortunately, even that isn't enough to convict him. Then Dong-Su remembers one final detail. He tells the judge that during their fight, he stabbed the killer directly in the chest. If the court doesn't believe him, they only need to remove the killer's shirt. The moment those words are spoken, genuine fear appears on the killer's face. When the officers remove his shirt, everyone sees the stab wound scar exactly where Dong-Su said it would be. At that moment, the killer's entire defense falls apart. The scar becomes the crucial evidence linking him directly to the attack on Dong-Su. With the evidence finally established, the judge finds the serial killer guilty and sentences him to death. At the same time, Dong-Su is sentenced to prison for operating illegal gambling businesses. However, because he helped convict the serial killer, his punishment is significantly reduced. As for the detective, successfully capturing one of the country's most dangerous serial killers finally earns him the promotion he had always wanted. In the final scene of the movie, we see Dong-Su entering prison. The moment the other inmates recognize him, they immediately lower their heads in fear and respect. Then, sitting alone a short distance away, Dong-Su notices another prisoner. It's the serial killer. The two men lock eyes, and a slow smile appears on Dong-Su's face. At that moment, we realize prison was never the end of Dong-Su's plan. It was part of it. He wanted to end up in the same prison as the serial killer, so he could finally take his revenge. The very next day, while the killer is taking a shower, Dong-Su quietly walks toward him carrying a rope. Standing right in front of him, he calmly says, "You started this game. Now I'm the one who's going to finish it." For the first time, the serial killer's confidence completely disappears as fear takes over his face, while Dong-Su lets out a satisfied laugh. And with that, the story comes to an end.